how to maintain sexual desire and attraction in long-term relationships. Hey everyone, Dr. Eva Danielle here, men's health expert. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I know the title might suggest this is advice from a woman's perspective, but what I'm actually going to give you is evidence-based insight into what creates and maintains genuine desire in relationships, particularly from the male side of understanding what builds attraction over time. Before we jump in, hit that subscribe button. We're going to talk about the psychology of desire, the difference between reactive and spontaneous desire, how to create the conditions for intimacy, and the common mistakes that kill attraction in long-term relationships. Only about 15% of you are subscribed, so let's change that. Here's the truth that most men don't understand. In long-term relationships, sexual desire doesn't just happen automatically like it did in the beginning. It needs to be cultivated. And the men who understand how to do this have incredible sex lives, even decades into their relationships. The men who don't understand this end up in sexless marriages, wondering what happened. So today, I'm breaking down what actually works based on research, clinical experience, and what couples in successful long-term relationships actually do. Let's get into it. Understanding how desire actually works. First, we need to understand something fundamental about how sexual desire operates, because most people get this completely wrong. There are two types of sexual desire. Spontaneous desire. This is what most people think of as normal desire. You're just going about your day, and suddenly you feel horny. You see your partner and immediately want sex. This is what happens in new relationships, when everything is novel and exciting. Responsive desire. This is when desire shows up in response to pleasure and intimacy, not before it. You might not feel particularly sexual, but as physical intimacy begins, kissing, touching, connection, arousal, and desire develop. Here's what research shows. Spontaneous desire is actually less common than most people think, especially in women, and especially in long-term relationships. For many people, particularly in established relationships, desire is primarily responsive. This means that waiting to be in the mood before initiating intimacy often results in no intimacy, because the mood shows up during intimacy, not before it. Understanding this completely changes how you approach sex in long-term relationships. The foundation, emotional safety, and connection. Before we get into specific behaviors, we need to establish the foundation. Sexual desire in long-term relationships is deeply connected to emotional safety and connection. Research by Dr. Sue Johnson and others working in attachment theory shows that sexual desire thrives when people feel emotionally safe with their partner, valued and appreciated, understood, and seen connected rather than distant. When these foundations are missing, when there's chronic conflict, resentment, emotional distance, or feeling taken for granted, sexual desire withers. You can try all the techniques you want, but if the emotional foundation is broken, they won't work. So the first question is, how's your relationship overall? If it's characterized by more criticism than appreciation, chronic, unresolved conflict, emotional distance, lack of quality time together, feeling like roommates rather than partners, then that's what needs to be addressed first. You can't technique your way out of a fundamentally disconnected relationship. What actually creates desire? The research-backed behaviors. Now, let's talk about what actually works. What do men in long-term relationships with active, satisfying sex lives do differently? 1. They prioritize non-sexual physical affection. This is huge, and most men completely miss it. In the early stages of relationships, there's tons of physical affection, hand-holding, kissing, cuddling. That's not necessarily leading to sex. It's just connection. Over time, many men stop doing this. The only time they're physically affectionate is when they want sex. And this creates a dynamic where any physical touch from them is interpreted as pressure for sex. Research shows that non-sexual physical affection increases oxytocin, bonding hormone, reduces stress, and cortisol, builds feeling of safety and connection, actually increases sexual desire over time. Practical application. Kiss her when you come home. Not a peck, an actual kiss. Hold hands while watching TV, hug her from behind while she's cooking, cuddle, without it leading to sex, touch her back, shoulders, arms throughout the day. This creates an environment where physical touch feels safe and pleasurable rather than like a transaction. 2, they do their share and then some. Here's something most relationship therapists see constantly. Women's sexual desire is strongly influenced by feeling overwhelmed versus supported. Multiple studies show that equitable division of household labor and childcare is associated with better sexual satisfaction in relationships. When women feel like they're carrying the entire mental and physical load of running the household, they're exhausted, resentful, and definitely not in the mood. This doesn't mean you're doing chores to earn sex. That's still transactional thinking. It means you're being an equal partner, which creates the conditions where desire can exist. Practical application. Take on household tasks without being asked. Notice what needs to be done and do it. Don't wait for her to manage you. Like a child, take genuine ownership of certain domains, not helping her with her tasks. When she's not mentally and physically exhausted from managing everything alone, there's space for sexual desire. 3, they maintain their own lives and interests. Here's a paradox. In the beginning of relationships, mystery and separateness create attraction. Over time, couples often become so merged that there's no space, no mystery, nothing new to discover. Research on desire in long-term relationships, particularly the work of Esther Perel, shows that desire needs space. It needs a sense of otherness. When you know everything about your partner and spend all your time together, desire can flatten. Men who maintain satisfying sex lives in long-term relationships, have their own hobbies and interests, maintain friendships outside the relationship, have goals and pursuits independent of their partner, give their partner space to have their own life. This isn't about creating artificial distance or playing games. It's about being a whole person who happens to be in a relationship, rather than someone whose entire identity is the relationship. 4, they actually listen and respond to feedback. When partners communicate what they like sexually, what they want more of, what doesn't work for them, do you actually listen and adjust? Or do you keep doing what you've always done? Research consistently shows that sexual satisfaction is strongly correlated with open communication about sex. Partners who are responsive to feedback, willingness to try new things, prioritizing partner's pleasure. Practical application. Ask what she enjoys. Pay attention to her responses during sex. Try things she's expressed interest in. Don't take feedback as criticism of your performance. Make her pleasure a genuine priority, not just foreplay before the main event. 5, they create anticipation and build up. In new relationships, there's natural anticipation. You're going to see each other later. You're thinking about them. There's texting. There's build up before you're actually together. In long-term relationships, especially when living together, this often disappears. You're always together, so there's no anticipation. You go from sitting on the couch watching TV to want to have sex with no transition. Men who maintain desire create anticipation. Flirtatious texts during the day, compliments that make her feel desired. Not just you're hot, but noticing specific things, creating date nights and treating them like actual dates, building sexual tension through the day before actually being sexual. This gives her brain time to shift gears from daily stress mode to sexual mode. 6, they take care of themselves. Look, I'm not saying you need to look like you did at 25, but there's a difference between normal aging and completely letting yourself go. When you maintain basic hygiene and grooming, stay reasonably fit and healthy, dress like you care about your appearance, take care of your health. You're communicating that you still care about being attractive, not just to her, but to yourself. This is appealing. Conversely, when you stop trying entirely, gaining significant weight, poor hygiene, dressing like you've given up, it signals that you've checked out, and that's not attractive. 7, they handle stress and emotions like adults. Women's desire is significantly affected by their partner's emotional state and how they handle stress. If you become a different person when stressed, angry, withdrawn, irritable, Can't regulate your emotions make your stress everyone else's problem shut down emotionally. This creates an environment where she has to manage your emotions, which puts her in a caretaking role, which kills sexual desire. Men who maintain desire in relationships manage their stress productively, exercise, therapy, healthy outlets, can talk about their feelings without dumping them on others, stay emotionally available, even when stressed, don't use their partner as an emotional dumping ground or punching bag. 8. They maintain romance and courtship. Just because you're in a committed relationship doesn't mean you stop courting your partner. The behaviors that attracted her initially. Planning thoughtful dates, giving genuine compliments, small gestures that show you're thinking of her, making her feel special and valued. These shouldn't stop just because you got her. Research shows that couples who maintain positive sentiment override, where positive interactions significantly outweigh negative ones, have better relationships and more satisfying sex lives. Aim for a ratio of at least 5 to 1 positive to negative interactions. What kills desire? The behaviors to avoid. Now, let's talk about what destroys desire in long-term relationships. Criticism and contempt. Constant criticism about how she does things, eye-rolling, dismissive comments, contempt. These are relationship poisons. You cannot feel desire for someone who treats you with contempt. Pressuring for sex. Guilt trips, pouting when rejected, making her feel bad for not being in the mood. This creates aversion to sex, not desire for it. Being boring. Doing the exact same thing every day, never trying anything new, having no interests or passions. This creates a flat, dull dynamic where desire can't thrive. Poor hygiene. This should be obvious, but bad breath, body odor, poor grooming. These are desire killers. Porn-influenced expectations. Expecting her to perform like porn actresses, prioritizing porn over actual sex with her, having unrealistic expectations. This creates insecurity and distance. Ignoring her outside the bedroom. Only paying attention when you want sex, then ignoring her the rest of the time. This makes sex feel transactional and unappealing. The conversation you need to have. At some point, you need to actually talk about your sex life. Not in the heat of the moment, not when one of you is frustrated, but a genuine, vulnerable conversation. This conversation might include: how satisfied are we both with our sex life? What would we each like more of? What's getting in the way of intimacy? What makes each of us feel desired? What helps each of us get in the mood? Having this conversation requires timing, not right before bed, not when stressed. Vulnerability, being honest about your needs and feelings. Non-defensiveness, hearing feedback without shutting down. Genuine curiosity about your partner's experience. When there are deeper issues, sometimes low desire in relationships is about more than just behavioral patterns. It can be related to hormonal issues, thyroid problems, menopause, low testosterone in either partner, mental health, depression, anxiety, medication side effects, antidepressants, blood pressure meds, past trauma, chronic pain, or health conditions, relationship wounds that need professional help. If you've tried addressing behavioral patterns and desire is still absent, it's worth exploring whether there are underlying medical or psychological factors that need professional attention. The long-term perspective. Here's what you need to understand about sex in long-term relationships. It evolves. The passionate, can't keep your hands off each other phase of new relationships doesn't last forever. That's biology. It's designed to get you bonded and reproducing, not to last 40 years. What replaces it in healthy relationships is something different but equally valuable. Deeper emotional intimacy that makes sex more meaningful, better communication that makes sex more satisfying, knowledge of each other's bodies that makes sex more pleasurable, trust and safety that allows for vulnerability and experimentation. But this only happens if you actively cultivate it. It doesn't happen by default. Your action plan this week: increase non-sexual physical affection. Aim for 10+ instances daily. Do something around the house without being asked. Plan a proper date night. Give her a genuine, specific compliment. This month, Have the conversation about your sex life, identify one thing she's mentioned she'd like, and actually do it. Take care of one aspect of yourself you've been neglecting: fitness, grooming, health. Create anticipation before initiating sex. Flirt through the day, build connection. Long term, make relationship maintenance a priority, not an afterthought. Keep evolving yourself. Develop new interests, pursue goals, maintain the ratio of 5 to 1 positive to negative interactions. Never stop courting your partner. Sexual desire in long-term relationships doesn't maintain itself. It requires intentionality, effort, and understanding how desire actually works. The men who have great sex lives years or decades into relationships aren't lucky. They're not with women who just happen to have higher libidos. They've created the conditions, emotional, physical, relational, where desire can thrive. They understand that desire is responsive, that it needs emotional safety, that it requires maintaining yourself as an attractive person, and that it flourishes when both partners feel valued and connected. You can't manipulate or pressure someone into genuine desire, but you can create an environment where it naturally develops. If this video helped you, hit that like button and share it with men who need to hear this. Long-term relationship dynamics are something we need to talk about more honestly. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're going to keep addressing real relationship challenges with actual solutions. Drop a comment. What's your biggest challenge in maintaining intimacy in your relationship? I read every comment. My name is Dr. Eva Danielle, men's health expert. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember, great long-term sex isn't about techniques. It's about connection, respect, and creating the conditions where desire can flourish.